Welcome, everyone. It's good to be together. We welcome you, and this is a continuing series on stories along the way. This is, for those who are joining us for the first time, I was on a sabbatical leave and walked El Camino de Santiago in Spain. And during that reflection time came along a lot of things that raised questions that in my own life that I thought, oh, I'd love to have that conversation with other believers and have you work with some of the questions that came up for me. And let's talk together and share our own stories. So that's what we're doing. I will share some stories and invite you into conversation. Welcome to those who are joining or following along the recordings. This is being recorded in a large group session. When you speak around your tables about conversation, the recording's paused. And so anything your voice would be recorded and what you share in the large group, but none of your small group conversation is recorded. That's simply for you. Yes?
Is that you in the picture?
I don't remember. This painting is a watercolor that was created by Mary Hiller based on one of my photos.
Oh,
and,
probably is.
And, so I think so. I think it is. You know, it was a gift, and I liked it as sort of a brand for this series also. So welcome. We've been talking about saints and angels and public witness, and we're going to keep doing that today. I will get to all of these faces a little later in our conversation. But are there any you recognize there?
Mother Teresa.
Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta.
Desmond Tutu.
Desmond Tutu next to her on the bottom row. Mahatma Gandhi, upper right corner. Who else? Malala Yousafzai, third row down to the left. Martin Luther King Jr., of course. And maybe there are some others. I'll bring this up later too. There are a few more that I know and some I don't know. So if you recognize some others that you can raise, then do so. So we left off that arriving in the big city of Burgos. And this is the Cathedral de Santa Maria, so St. Mary's Cathedral. It's a huge Gothic style cathedral in the city of Burgos. And there was a wedding going on in one of the chapels, so I got to just, watch this beautiful thing happen kind of on the side. I didn't stand in the back and watch the wedding from the back, but of course, weddings are public services of worship, so you could do that. But I got to watch the bride and her father walking in, and the limo waiting for them afterwards, and the crowd waiting outside the.
Women have wild hats on. We did in Madrid, but we saw a wedding part of the chapel.
No, nothing special with the hats.
I mean, they were like a big flat things and shapes.
That wasn't the tradition here, I guess. This was, very, very formal and joyful. But this cathedral especially has art and architecture that highlights humanity. We talked before about some of the importance for people in their faith of Mary is the divine living within and expressing itself through a regular human being. That's part of the joyful part of a devotion to Mary. And so this cathedral in Burgos also very much highlights the humanity of Jesus, the apostles, the saints. And so you see in the upper right there a beautiful sculpture type place over the entrance of the church of Jesus's baptism and the Holy Spirit's descent at Jesus's baptism. And then at an outside entrance, you see the 12 apostles up above, and some of the great saints and witnesses of the church. This bronze is Jesus humbly entering Jerusalem with the donkey and her foal. Our Mary and Martha Circle noted something about that story that I hadn't noticed before. It was like the Gospels talk about the foal and the colt, next to the foal, that Jesus said, "Bring them to me." So even in entering on the Passion, he doesn't separate the mother from the young animal for his service. They're both present there. And of course, one of the great reredos behind the altar is common in many of the huge cathedrals and even parish churches in Spain to a lesser extent with gold. So this cathedral's 800th anniversary is being celebrated.
So where was the choir section? Was it in the middle?
It was in the middle. So this photo that I took would have been standing right in front of what they call the choir.
Okay.
And then there's this, wooden structure built in the center where there are seats banked up steeply on each side for the different singing sections, soprano, alto, tenor, bass, and an organ in the center. Yeah. So one of the ways that the people of Burgos celebrated the 800th anniversary was actually in 2021. You see at the base of the statue. But it's like a public celebration. And so they created all different types of pilgrim sculptures, and put them throughout the city, because the city of Burgos is on the way of El Camino de Santiago, on this pilgrimage route. And so they're celebrating that for these 800 years, the cathedral has been a place that people walk to and through as a part of their pilgrimage. And this was one example of those of us who were walking kept running across these pilgrims sculptures, and they're just kind of joyful as a part of that. And of course, when you walk into the cathedral also. Now, the cathedral worship was, I went to a Saturday evening mass, and it was packed. I was a little COVID nervous, wore my N95 mask, but there were nuns in full habit who were putting folding chairs at the end of the pew rows to see, and I sat in one of those because I got there early, but still, it was full. And so there's something, I know that Europe as well as the United States is becoming very secularized. Something about that, witness continues to draw people into worship. And on the pew next to me was a multi-generational family, at least 3 generations with little kids and teenagers and abuelas and abuelos. And so anyway, I enjoyed witnessing that part of the life. Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about there. And so, and afterwards, I'm taking pictures of the cathedral, and a couple of girls who were about 13, I think, approached me and spoke to me in English and asked if they could interview me for their English class final project. I wasn't sure, And so it was fun, they had some questions and they wrote down my answers,
Did they have any idea who you were? Or just they knew you were American?
I think I stuck out as an American, as a tourist. But I had my day pack with a shell, which is a sign that you're a pilgrim. So they might have been looking to, talk with someone who's not just a tourist, but perhaps also a pilgrim. So they wanted to know, where I'm from, why I'm walking El Camino de Santiago, and where did I start? How long do I intend, do I intend to walk all the way to Santiago? And Justine, who's next to me, said, I really want to walk El Camino, but my parents say I'm too young. And so anyway, it was lovely to get to meet with them.
How old are those girls? Do you know?
About 13. Yeah. Yeah. And so, led me to reflect on some questions. How do we want to celebrate our 50th anniversary that's coming up in 11 months as a congregation? How do we want to involve all generations in that? And how will we share a public outward-looking faith in doing so? So, I'm going to pause the recording, and I invite you to talk with each other at your tables. We don't have 800 years, but we have 50 that we get to note and give thanks for and mark as a congregation. And, how are we going to do that? So share around your tables whatever you think, what comes to mind. I'm going to invite us back into a larger conversation, because this is one where I want us to hear from each other on. And with that, I'll ask, is there someone who would like to be a scribe? While we're talking together, is there anyone who wouldn't mind? It's easier for me to moderate the conversation if someone else is taking it.
I must know where.
We're ready for it. Oh,
Up here.
up here.
I didn't realize I had to be up here.
All right, I'll turn the camera on. There you go. Thank you, Molly. All right, well, let's just talk. What are some harebrained ideas we came up with?
Looks like I might need to start.
Well, definitely we want a committee that has all generations on that committee.
Yeah.
Are we taking the first one first?
Yeah, but in this case, I think we can take all three
Okay.
as one, and the responses can be to any or all of the questions. You don't have to filter that. Let's just hear from each other.
We told them to take something out in the local newspapers, something in the local newspaper.
Advertise in local newspaper, okay.
Invite the mayor or politicians from Morgan Hill.
Okay.
Get involved with the interfaith council meetings like those.
Invite both public officials and interfaith and ecumenical partners to celebrate with us. Great. What else?
We should probably build some kind of a monument or plaque. I don't know how much some of these things cost, but even bell tower, if we have lots of money.
Monument or plaque. There's a
Or this would
long
be a-
deferred, we have on our project plan, a Carillon Tower in the courtyard as a possibility. Thank you.
Do we have a time capsule?
Do we have a time?
Yes, yes, we do. For the new one.
Oh, yes, well, what we have is we put some things into the cornerstone of the building. So it's not designed to be opened up.
Unless we want to build something else.
Good question, good answer. Yeah, good.
So we can make a new cornerstone add. Our table thought of doing like a walk. Maybe starting out at Masonic Hall where Advent actually started.
Okay.
Our way
Some kind of walk through town. The early worship services before the congregation had this site. A mission developed community starting in 1971, I think, was worshiping at the Masonic Hall, which is still standing. The building's still standing. Pastor Gary Berkeley will tell tales about, you know, people coming early to mop up the beer smell. Whatever festivities had happened the night before Saturday night there, you know, for Sunday worship. But yeah, this first unit was dedicated, I believe, in 1975. Something like that. The congregation was organized as a congregation of the American Lutheran Church, October 16, 1973. Yes.
We said we should make sure to invite, you know, all the founding members,
Invite
and we thought maybe like council presidents, so we have a list of all the council presidents.
council presidents, founding members, of course, founding pastor, and there was one other associate pastor, Eric Walble, who served here in the 1980s for a few years.
He was Elton John at a talent show we had. I'll never forget it. He was so good.
Yeah.
You could ride a bike here from Minnesota.
Yeah, music.
Special music.
This congregation has always struck me as being highly musical.
Highly musical, so some kind of music. Right, maybe a commission something.
We had something commissioned for the 40th,
We did.
and we've never used it again.
All right, all right. And what's the it that we're inviting people to? I love the inclusiveness of how you're thinking about inviting. What is the thing? What does our celebration look like?
Well, we should, when we talk about music, that we should include some music from each decade.
Music from each decade of the 50 years.
Top 50 hits.
And maybe, you know, for this community in particular, what was a song or hymn that was especially beloved in that decade? Okay.
When you say what's the it, and I was thinking about your sermon, but you know, it wasn't the temple or the building, it was the community. So I guess if we want to invite others, it should really be our participation in the community for the last 50 years and looking forward to the next 50. Right? And we can point out, look how much it's changed over the last 50. We're continuing to evolve and change. This is what we're celebrating, because it's all been centered in the same community of faith. But
Continually evolving along with the community around us. Thank you. That's helpful.
So some things come to my mind, which would be to make sure to include voices and to include the preschool. It's a big part of us. And also, we had a block party pre-pandemic, and Lord providing, we can do that again in 2023. Another block party and invite the neighborhood.
Or some variation on a theme. We didn't have a lot of neighbors come to the block party, so there might be some adaptations that would to more effectively penetrate the community. I'm not sure what those are,
I
but
was wondering whether, rather than even putting it in the courtyard, it then becomes invisible,
Yeah.
you know, so we have the front area.
a parking lot, something.
Yeah, so to have like a bandstand for the music with some speakers, so that we make our presence known, to, you know, to be more visible.
And it's to be determined sort of what shape our own frontage is in. So I love the ideas, and we're probably going to have to wait and see, but we can still put some things down on pencil and paper and see how.
They have lovely tents now.
Yes.
When would the celebration actually be?
Well,
In
it's
6 months?
don't ask me. This is all of us. Guess what? We get to do whatever we want to do here. We could, you know, we could have a big month of October sort of focus. We could do something that's over a period of time.
What I mean, it's 2020.
2023
It's actually the.
is the 50. Yep.
So we should hopefully have the front of the church looking in shape by the
If you don't remodel the kitchen.
We should dig through our archives and look for photographs and an early bulletin. Have an archive group who does some work. Our archives have needed some attention, so if there was a small group who was willing to be a little archive group, that would be a real gift. And important too, because people like our founding pastor is 86 years old, and it'd be nice to interview and capture some of those stories and that are part of our story, right?
You can also ask members to bring some of their memories and their archive stuff that they have.
Exactly, yeah. Good.
How many cookbooks is the congregation?
I'm wondering about how to call to mind, or maybe get to visit people whose lives have been affected by this church, who have gone elsewhere in the world. I mean,
Could you repeat that?
we've had.
Thinking about that, people whose lives have been touched by this congregation who've gone elsewhere in the world and service, like our interns, teaching parish student. I mean, Pastor Laura Martin is just a fabulous pastor in Rialto, California, a thriving church that she leads. And lay folks, you know, who have, Mark Hansen is serving the church full-time in North Carolina, he's a church musician, but also just in life, in everyday, you know, professional and volunteer life, the sorts of things that have been sent out from here.
So we should have a Zoom hour for all the people that can't make it to work and film, put it on the screen. And we have to plan and say, hey, you get 5 minutes to talk about, you know, some way the church impacted you.
Awesome, awesome. Memory from here and how that's worked out in your life. I thought it was ideas. Yeah.
I thought about for including some of the younger people having, you know, getting something for them to color that you can put up, because I've seen those in like ice cream shops and whatnot. For me, it really makes it feel like, you know, that there's young people here and they care, and it looks, every drawing is a little different. If it's the same drawing painted in a different color, different way.
Have them do some artwork in advance.
Well, we can have them do artwork, but there could also be like coloring book pages that are of faith that are the same page that numerous different children color. So.
Maybe some young people could interview the oldest people.
That's very
excellent.
That's why I volunteered.
Gilmore High School, they have music buildings to fill around.
Yeah.
It's a big part of the history.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be nice to honor the whole music history of it.
Absolutely.
I mean, the Lutheran, this church has a really nice.
That's nice, and that could be, you know, a Sunday, its own Sunday, even apart from the big celebration Sunday, could be honoring the music leaders of our church through the decades or something like that. That's nice. Yeah.
Is your hand cramping? Nice handwriting. Need another page?
Yeah, my hand is cramping.
So, as you're catching up, someone asked, is there biblical significance to 50? And there is, in a couple of ways. So, going back in history of Israel, the seventh day is set aside as the Sabbath day. According to the law code, the seventh year was also to be a Sabbath year in which the land rested. And the covenant people were to, you know, trust that whatever they had gathered and harvested in other years would be sufficient to allow the land to rest in that 7th year. Now, after 7 years, 7 times 7 years, plus 1 is 50, and that was called the Jubilee year, in which all debts were to be forgiven. And
Could you repeat that
returned.
sentence? Back up. Well, first of all, day 7 was a day of rest.
The day of Sabbath day.
But, and worship.
Day of rest and worship, yeah.
And sabbatical year.
And
And then I have year 7, the land was
a
rested.
sabbatical year.
Oh,
During that, you're correct, land rested. And then year 50 was called the Jubilee year. And so debts were erased, and land, land was sometimes handed over as a debt payment, and families and tribal groups would lose their land through becoming indebted. It would return to its ancestral owners in year 50. Also, now we don't know historically if Israel ever fully observed the Jubilee year. Right? Because human beings are what we are. We're like, well, nice idea, but I don't think so. I don't think that's very practical. But it's there. It's there in the scriptural tradition. And now, the day of resurrection is Easter Day, and Easter season is 50 days long. So Pentecost. Penti is 5. Pentecost is, the 50 days of the Easter season, and with Pentecost. So it is that sense of resurrection, renewal, life for the world, that is kind of in the biblical tradition around that number 50.
And the Pentecost.
And Pentecost
Holy
is
Spirit.
the Holy Spirit carrying the mission of Jesus forward through time. The story did not end because of the Holy Spirit's life that was given to the people then, and is given today to us to continue the mission.
So we could have a 50-day jubilee to celebrate.
A week of weeks.
Right, that could be a parameter of the celebration. Yeah.
That would allow us time to maybe do
To do a few
a bigger project.
different things along the way, right? Yeah, nice.
I was thinking maybe if people were willing to share if they were married in this church, because there have been a lot of marriages in this church.
Oh, that would be a nice angle too, to celebrate, to look back through the records and look up.
We were married. Yeah.
And baptisms, and memorial services, people, confirmations. There's a lot, right? I'm loving this kind of stuff. You've had a thought around Jubilee.
With the debt forgiveness, in our own town, there are a lot of people that owe debts, and Janet's committee, the Community Connections,
Community Connections
just talked about, could we help somebody out by paying their way overdue water bill? Could we help with their PG&E bill? And we never could work that out with the city, but I know Carol Lillig over with St. Joseph's and St. Catherine has that, I think has that knowledge and capacity. Maybe that's something that we could find out about.
And that's a community outreach for sure.
and a way of publicly sharing our faith.
Yeah.
And we could, without bragging, we could say from the place of our faith, this debt forgiveness is significant, and so we are going to participate in it in our own community in this way. We do have a local assistance fund that has a healthy amount of money in it right now. that could be used for that purpose, but it would require, as always, it requires a small group of people who say that I'm up for this project to administer it, because everything is a good idea but it has to be administered. It has to be carried out by someone, right? So I hope that some of these ideas are sparking interest. There's one piece of it that you might feel drawn to sign up for. So
We could also invite others to join us.
we could invite others into that, yeah. But you know, as our 50th, this is kind of how we're moving. Yeah.
I was just thinking, you know, community table here every week, there's regular people that come every week, and they very much appreciate what the church does for them, and we can invite those people.
Yeah, could invite them. Maybe, and maybe for some of our regular people, give $50 bills. just because we want to share, you know, our regular clients.
$50, that's a holiday.
Yeah.
Or wouldn't it be nice?
But just because, just that like, you didn't see this coming kind of gift.
Yeah, write that down, $50.
Like,
Learning
you do the community table every week, like, we could have a really nice special feast
Yes.
for a week, and advertise like a month before, because oftentimes, you know, if people know that good food's coming, they get a lot more to come. We can just really make a nice meal, as opposed to the usual, you know.
Yeah.
Something great.
Good here.
One of the fatted calf. Yeah.
All right, any other things that should be said at this time?
I'm getting writer's cramp.
We're so grateful to you, Molly, for capturing.
I would like to say that none of this has to wait till next year. I think it's soon, and maybe the water bill thing could start in soon.
It's possible that it could, but again, I think things are done well when there's someone administering it and when we're able to communicate it fully, you know, do all the pieces well. So that's absolutely right, though.
But I wanted to lead into that we're letting the land go fallow in front of it.
So, awesome beginning, and you know, like all things, if one of you might be called to share or co-chair an anniversary committee, our church council tends to have full plates of work, just our regular ministries. So obviously the anniversary committee would be working in concert with our church council, but I don't think we should necessarily look for instance, our council president to head this up, because she has enough to do. And so, yes.
I think it's awesome. 50 years, only 2 pastors. Not many churches can have that.
We are rare to have had only 2 senior pastors in 50 years. That is correct. Most people can't believe it.
No, I tell them.
And, you know, this congregation is a nice place to be. You would not hold on to pastors this long if you were not a good congregation.
Yeah, every visiting pastor tells us that.
So, all right, well, let's see. 1803 in a family belonging to the Swedish nobility related through the maternal line to the royal family. Her grandfathers and her father were judges, as was her husband. This privileged circumstance allowed her to receive a good education. From childhood, Bridget had visions. Once she saw the Virgin Mary place a crown on her head. On another occasion, she saw before her Jesus Christ tortured and dead on the cross. These two dilemmas, the profound devotion to Mary and the meditations on the suffering of Christ, would work in Bridget's entire life. When she was 10 years old, her mother died, and her father, feeling incapable of giving her an education that she deserved, sent her to her aunt's house, Catalina Bezendotte, in Spain. She passed a long period of her life with her husband, Ulf Gudmarsson, to whom she was given in marriage at the age of 13. Ulf was an advisor of the kingdom, and he and Bridget had 8 children, among them St. Catherine of Sweden. For 6 years, she was the principal lady in waiting of the court of King Magnus II of Sweden and Norway. As her father did 20 years earlier, Bridget went on a pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela along with her husband in 1341, a round trip that extended to 3 years. Shortly after returning, her husband died, and she left written, "When I buried my husband, I buried with him all carnal love and things of the earth. I wish to be free, and I commend myself to God." She managed to live in a Cistercian monastery of Albastra, and it was there in 1349 she drew up the former rules of the Order of the Most Holy Savior, presently known as the Bridgetine Order. A double order, feminine and masculine, based on the spiritual, ascetic, and communal life of the Cistercian order, and later Protestant reform would leave an indelible mark on the masculine branch. A short time later, and until the end of her days, she lived in Rome, where she wrote the Angelic Discourse, considered a masterwork of Swedish literature of the 14th century. She founded the convent at Vadstena and died without knowing that she would finally make her dream a reality, that she began to pursue when she returned from Santiago, the consecration of the convent of Vadstena, built on land granted by the King of Sweden. The first printing press of Sweden was installed there. She was canonized by Pope Boniface X in 1391, and in 1999, John Paul II proclaimed her a co-patroness of Europe, along with St. Catherine of Siena and St. Teresa Benedicta of the Cross. So this little hermitage was one of her places along the way, about Camino de Santiago. And I had shared before that El Camino impacted all of Europe through the centuries, and St. Bridget is certainly an example of that. Then when I got to Hornillos, this was a close-up of the church, and over to the left side was this really wonderful place for prayer that had been prepared for pilgrims. And so I took a little time there. You see traditional icons in the center of Jesus on the cross, and then of Mary with the infant Jesus. A little altar, a place to light candles, lots of Bible in all kinds of languages. And then up above is that the different people who I would say are 20th century peacemakers from all lands and traditions. And so I think what maybe next time we'll pick up with this place and some conversation about that and what that means, what that looks like. Because as you noted, there's a Hindu there, a Muslim, some Christians, Buddhist, Christians of different kinds, and some good stories to share.
Do you know the names of each of the people?
I know the names. I believe upper left is the Dalai Lama as a boy.
Oh.
Is it? What do you think? What do you all think?
That's what I thought.
The second one from the left, I don't know. The next one in is Lema Bowie of Liberia, and she has an amazing story in Liberia that I will share. And she was a speaker at our ELCA National Youth Gathering in the 90s, I think. A Nobel Peace Prize winner, and a person of faith and Lutheran tradition, actually. And Mahatma Gandhi. This one, second row to the left, I recognize him and I don't know who it is. So if you... Cesar Chavez?
Is it?
No.
No, I don't think so, but... Then the next one is, I don't know him either. It's possible that it's Stanley Rother, who I came across in Guatemala, from Oklahoma, a Catholic priest in Guatemala who was martyred there. And then Rigoberta Menchú of Guatemala. Anyone know her story? Okay. And then Wangari Maathai of Kenya. Malala Yousafzai, Martin Luther King Jr. I don't know the next two. The older woman and the young boy, I do not know. The one on the, I don't know if this is Thich Nhat Hanh or not. It might be fourth row.
Say that again, who?
Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist, famous Buddhist teacher, participated in the American Civil Rights Movement. Mother Teresa, Saint Teresa of Calcutta, Desmond Tutu, and Charles de Foucault of France. 20th century, also spiritual teacher. So we won't go into, long stories for all of them, but we might be able to talk about why some of those stories matter next time. So thank you all for sharing the stories along the way.